Older than the country of Canada. Later this month, St. Paul's Middlechurch in West St. Paul is celebrating their 200th anniversary. Joining us today to talk a little bit more about it is the People's Warden at St. Paul's Middlechurch, Debbie Pansky. Thank you for taking the time.
Oh, thank you for reaching out to us.
Absolutely. 200th anniversary is like blowing my mind. I think it is fantastic. If you don't mind, could you tell us a little bit about the history of this church and maybe even some of the different names?
Okay, so St. Paul's was originally established by the Church Missionary Society, and that was in 1825. So the first building was opened on January 30th, 1825, with their initial service. The area was originally called Image Plain. It wasn't known by Middlechurch at the time. The first church established in the area was St. John's, which is now the cathedral. And it was seen that a second church was required, so they started up St. Paul's. Then later, St. Andrew's on the Red was established. And because of the three churches, St. Paul's was in the middle, and that's how it got its name for the area, Middlechurch.
Very cool. I like that. The building, is it the original building or was there some damage at some point? Have they rebuilt anything?
Yes, it's the third building. So the initial building from 1825 was severely damaged by the flood of 1826. And although they continued to use it, although I don't know how, because it had knocked the windows out, the pews out, the pulpit out, but people persisted through using that building. And it was replaced in 1844. In 1852, a second flood damaged it, and the building we now have today was built between 1876 and 1880. We did move it onto a basement about 200 or 300 feet to the east, and so now we have it on a basement, and that is now our church hall.
That's incredible. I would love to know if, you even have an idea. What does a service look like today compared to 200 years ago when it first opened?
Well, the initial services would have been Anglican services from the Book of Common Prayer, although I understand that they were slightly altered to help the Presbyterians of the area who didn't have their own church but attended there. So it was slightly altered to make them comfortable. So, but mainly it would have been the Book of Common Prayer. We now use the Book of Alternative Service, which is the book that, or the service or liturgy book that the Anglican Church of Canada uses.
How many people roughly are in the congregation today?
We have about 50 people on our roster, although we don't usually get all 50 at the same time. Many are no longer able to make it to the service. So although they're still part of our congregation, part of our church family, they aren't able to make it to the building.
I would love to know, can you share a little bit about the cemetery that is, I believe, on the property, and a little bit of the meaning behind it?
So the first burial in the cemetery comes from July of 1851. It was a 4-month-old baby. And we now have 1,109 burials at the cemetery. Not all of them have markers. Many of them had originally been marked with wooden markers, which have since degraded, and so they are unmarked. Unfortunately, we don't know where some people are buried. We just know that they are there. We also have an area that we have for, excuse me, burial for people through the public trustee's office. So those are people that have passed that either don't have family or can't afford their burial. So we have a section with 135 people buried there. In fact, there's a burial happening today, and that is done through the Bardell Funeral Home. And we make sure that it is a respectful burial and that there is a marker placed with information that we do have on the person. You know, sometimes we don't have their birth date, but we'll have their death date. And we sometimes get calls from family members across Canada who have just discovered that their family has passed away, and we're able to send them a photo of the marker and to let them know that that they were respectfully buried, and if they wanted to come out, we can escort them to the site.
I think that's a really special thing that you guys do.
It's become a big part of our ministry, actually.
I believe that. I would love to know, what are you doing to celebrate St. Paul's Middle Church's 200th anniversary?
So we're having a service this Sunday, January 26th at 9:15 a.m. And we've invited some dignitaries, some people from the local area, our local MLA, and past members who have moved away, family members of those that have past served in the congregation. And so we're having that service. Um, there was a tradition of a strawberry tea for probably 80 years at St. Paul's, and that went by the wayside prior to COVID. And so we've decided to bring that back this year to have at least one more strawberry tea. And then we had a tradition of fall suppers that we haven't done for years, but we're going to have a fall supper in September. So those are the main events that we're planning to celebrate this year.
That is fantastic. 200 years is for sure nothing to shake a stick at. That is very impressive. And I really appreciate you taking the time. Debbie, is there anything else you wanted to share today?
Not really, just that we feel a tremendous responsibility to keep St. Paul's Middle Church going. People sacrificed their lives, their time, their money, and so we feel a responsibility to keep that going as long as we can. So that is where we move towards the future.
Absolutely. Thank you again for sharing this momentous occasion with CHVN and all of our listeners. And we're going to get this up shortly.
Okay, thank you very much.